In a world where ambition often collides with circumstance, sometimes the greatest stories are born from what seems like failure. This is the story of James Carter, a single dad whose life had already been carved by loss, raising his daughter Lily with nothing but love and determination. On the morning of his most important interview, the chance to keep their home and rebuild their future fate tested him with a choice: chase his own survival or stop to help a stranger in need. He never imagined that his sacrifice on a rainy roadside would set off a chain of events filled with secrets, betrayal, and an unexpected bond that could heal not only his broken life, but hers as well. Stay with us, because this tale is about more than missed opportunities. It's about courage, kindness, and the miracles hidden in unlikely places. James Carter stood in the dimly lit kitchen, staring at the coffee pot that had long since sputtered to silence. The morning light leaked through the blinds, falling across a table cluttered with unpaid bills and Lily's crayons. At 40, James carried himself like a man older, his once straight shoulders bent from years of loss. Once, he had been a promising mechanical engineer, full of ideas and ambition. But when the company folded after a messy scandal and his wife lost her fight against cancer, everything crumbled. Now all that remained was survival: a small apartment that the bank threatened to repossess, a dwindling savings account, and an 8-year-old girl who believed her father could still move mountains. Today was supposed to be his lifeline. A job interview, not just any interview, but the kind of opportunity that could lift them out of the quicksand. James had spent weeks preparing. He had polished his old shoes until they shone, ironed his only suit, and practiced answering questions in front of the bathroom mirror. Lily had watched him rehearse and, with her small hands, crafted a card out of pink paper. In uneven block letters, she had written, "You're my hero, Daddy." She slipped it into his jacket pocket that morning with a solemnity beyond her years. "Take this," she whispered, "for luck." James kissed the top of her head, inhaling the scent of shampoo and crayons. "I'll make you proud, Bug," he said, though doubt gnawed at him. He knew this was his last chance before eviction notices turned into locked doors. The streets glistened from an overnight rain as James drove his rattling pickup across town. His heart thudded with each passing mile, every traffic light a reminder of time slipping away. He rehearsed silently, steady handshake, confident smile, firm voice. He needed this job more than air. Then fate intervened. On the side of the road ahead, a sleek black sedan sat with its hood propped open, steam curling into the gray sky. Beside it stood a woman in a tailored coat, her hands trembling as she fumbled with her phone. From the driver's seat, James caught the outline of her face, elegant, refined, but undone by tears. He tightened his grip on the wheel. His watch ticked mercilessly. If he stopped, he would be late. If he kept going, his conscience would haunt him. He pressed the accelerator, then slammed the brake. Lily's card pressed against his chest like a weight. "You're my hero." Heroes didn't drive past. With a resigned sigh, James pulled over. The woman looked up, startled, as James stepped out. Her eyes were rimmed red, her mascara streaked by rain. "Are you all right?" he asked, though the answer was clear. She swallowed hard. "The car just died. I can't get it to start. And I don't know what to do." Her voice cracked on the last word. James popped the hood, ignoring the drizzle soaking his suit. The engine hissed in protest as he leaned in, fingers moving with the practiced ease of a man who once lived under hoods and blueprints. Within minutes, he diagnosed the fault. "Battery's drained," he said gently. "I can give you a jump. After that, you'll need a shop." She nodded, her hands twisting nervously. As James fetched jumper cables, he noticed details: the expensive cut of her coat, the discreet but costly shoes, and most curious of all, the gold band on her finger, engraved with a small emblem he didn't recognize. It looked less like a wedding ring and more like a crest. He filed the observation away, too polite to comment. Soon, The sedan hummed back to life. Relief washed across her face, but the tears in her eyes didn't vanish. "Thank you," she whispered, voice trembling. She seemed on the edge of saying more, but held back. James, embarrassed by her gratitude, offered his umbrella. "Take this. You need it more than I do." Then, without thinking, he pulled Lily's pink card halfway from his pocket and showed her. "My daughter made this. Says I'm a hero. I don't always believe it, but maybe she's right." The woman's gaze softened. For a heartbeat, James thought he glimpsed something deeper: loneliness, despair, but she quickly looked away. "You don't know what this means to me," she said quietly. James gave a small nod, then hurried back to his truck, glancing at his watch. His chest sank. The interview window had already closed. By the time he arrived at the building, the receptionist shook her head sympathetically. The hiring manager had left. Back home, James dropped his jacket on the chair, the weight of failure pressing down. But Lily ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Did you get the job?" she asked brightly. James forced a smile. "Not today, Bug." Her little face fell, then brightened again. "That's okay. I'm still proud of you, Daddy. You helped someone. That's better than any job." Her words pierced him like both a wound and a balm. He held her close, realizing that though he had lost his chance, he had made a choice he could live with. Yet deep inside, unease stirred. That woman, stranded, weeping, mysterious, hadn't just been a stranger. Something about her lingered like a shadow on the horizon, promising that this story was far from over. The days after James missed his interview felt like walking through a storm without an umbrella. He went through the motions, packing Lily's lunch, checking the mailbox, pacing the apartment, but inside, a gnawing sense of failure consumed him. Each bill he opened cut deeper. Each bank notice felt like a countdown to disaster. At night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he had doomed them both with one act of misplaced kindness. Lily, with her boundless faith, kept trying to lift him. She taped her drawings to the fridge, pictures of them holding hands under a bright sun, pictures of their tiny apartment with hearts above it. "Daddy will be okay," she said one night, curling up beside him. "You always make things okay." James forced a smile, but when she drifted to sleep, he sat alone in the dark, wondering how long he could keep pretending. 3 mornings later, his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Carter?" A professional voice said, "You are invited to Hayes Industries headquarters tomorrow morning." 10 o'clock. James nearly dropped the phone. Hayes Industries was a name everyone knew, the engineering giant that built half the city's skyline. He hadn't applied there. Was it a cruel mistake? Still, something in the tone, measured, precise, compelled him to agree. The next morning, James put on the same pressed suit, the same scuffed shoes, and tucked Lily's pink card into his jacket. He kissed her goodbye, telling her he was going to see about some work, though he hardly believed it himself. Driving into the city, the Hayes Industries tower rose above him like a monument of glass and steel, impossibly polished compared to his frayed life. Inside, he was escorted to a private boardroom. The room smelled of leather and polish, walls lined with art and framed accolades. At the far end stood a woman in a tailored suit, her back to him as she gazed out the window at the skyline. When she turned, James's breath caught. It was her, the stranger from the roadside. For a heartbeat, he thought he must be dreaming. Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed by a faint, almost knowing smile. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "we meet again." I don't understand," James stammered. "My name is Eleanor Hayes," she said, extending her hand. "I'm the CEO of Hayes Industries, and I think we have unfinished business." James felt his legs go weak as he sat opposite her. The woman he had helped in the rain wasn't just any stranger. She was one of the most powerful executives in the state. He remembered the strange ring on her hand, the weight she had carried in her eyes. He whispered, "That day, I thought you were just broken down, she finished with a sad smile. I was. More than you knew. She folded her hands, her composure steady, but her voice threaded with something fragile. That day, I wasn't just stranded. I was walking away from everything: my company, my life. The grief of losing my daughter, the pressure of running this empire alone. It was too much. And then you stopped. You reminded me people still care. Jane swallowed, struggling to respond. I only did what anyone would. Her gaze sharpened. No, most people would have driven by. You didn't. And that tells me more about who you are than any resume. He sat silent, stunned, but Eleanor wasn't finished. She leaned forward, her tone shifting. But there's more you should know. That day, I wasn't only weighed down by grief. There are people in this company who want me gone. I was being followed. Someone inside orchestrated a staged accident meant to discredit me. By stopping, by being there, you may have saved me from something worse. James blinked. The memory of her trembling hands, the way she kept glancing over her shoulder, clicked into place. You're saying... I'm saying, she interrupted gently, that fate brought you into my path for a reason. I need people I can trust, not just brilliant minds, honest ones. What you showed me that day was the truest kind of character, sacrifice without expectation. She studied him carefully. That's why you're here. That interview you missed, it was never the real test. This is. The weight of her words hit James harder than any rejection letter ever had. He thought of Lily's drawings, her unwavering belief in him. He thought of the card tucked in his pocket, "You're my hero." For the first time in years, he felt the possibility that it could be true. As the conversation deepened, Eleanor shared more of her story. The accident that claimed her daughter, the silence of her home, the betrayals within her boardroom. James, in turn, admitted his own fears, the loss of his wife, the crushing guilt of not being enough for Lily, the nights spent wondering if he was failing her. In that quiet boardroom high above the city, two wounded souls found recognition in each other's pain. When James finally left the building, the city looked different. The glass tower no longer felt like a monument to power, but like a doorway to something new. He didn't know exactly what Eleanor Hayes intended for him, but he knew this much. The stranger he had helped on the roadside wasn't done changing his life. James Carter walked into Hayes Industries the following week, not as a desperate man clutching at hope, but as someone invited to prove himself. Eleanor Hayes had given him a chance few ever received, to oversee the launch of a program. Who better to lead than someone who's lived it? She had said, her eyes firm with conviction. But the job wasn't just about building classrooms and schedules. Beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. As James settled into the role, he began noticing irregularities in the company's accounts tied to the project budget. Figures didn't add up, invoices were duplicated, and subcontractors were being paid for work never done. His engineering mind, trained to notice small inconsistencies, caught the pattern quickly. At first, he doubted himself. But when he brought the files to Eleanor, her face tightened. I feared this, she admitted. One of my own executives has been undermining me, bleeding the company dry to weaken my position. They want me removed. The realization chilled James. The staged accident Eleanor had hinted at wasn't paranoia, it was part of a larger scheme. And by stopping that day on the roadside, he had interrupted their plan. Now, he was part of it whether he liked it or not. Eleanor placed her trust in him. Together, they worked quietly, cross-checking ledgers late into the night, interviewing contractors, piecing together the betrayal. James felt the old fire inside him, the problem solver, the protector spark to life again. This time, though, he wasn't just building machines. He was building a shield for someone who had shown him unexpected faith. The breaking point came during a board meeting where the accused executive presented falsified reports. James, standing beside Eleanor, laid down the true documents he had uncovered. His voice, once hesitant, now rang steady. The numbers don't lie. These payments never reached their destination. They were redirected. Gasps filled the room. Eleanor followed with a calm but unflinching statement. And the man responsible sits among us today. The board fell into chaos as security escorted the executive out. When it was over, Eleanor turned to James in the hushed aftermath. "You've done more than save my company," she said. "You've reminded me why I keep fighting." James, exhausted but resolute, replied, "You gave me a chance. I only returned the favor." In the weeks that followed, the single-parent training initiative blossomed. Classrooms filled with mothers and fathers who had once felt invisible. James mentored them with a mixture of technical skill and lived compassion. He knew the look in their eyes, the mix of fear and hope, and he met it with understanding. The press took notice. Headlines celebrated not just Hayes Industries, but James himself. Single dad leads new program to give parents a future. At home, Lily's world transformed too. She loved visiting the center, proudly telling anyone who would listen, "My daddy's the boss here." She clung to Eleanor's hand more and more, calling her Auntie Ellie, filling a void in both their hearts. For Eleanor, who had lost a daughter, Lily's laughter was a salve. For James, who had lived so long in grief, seeing his daughter safe and cherished by another was a balm he hadn't known he needed. One evening, standing outside the completed center, James watched the sun dip low, casting the building in a golden glow. Families streamed inside, children tugging their parents forward with excitement. Eleanor stepped up beside him, her expression softer than he had ever seen. "You realize," she said, "if you'd made it to that first interview, none of this would have happened." James smiled, slipping a hand into his pocket. The edges of Lily's pink card were frayed now, but the words were still clear. "You're my hero." He held it up briefly, letting Eleanor see it. "I think this was the real interview," he said quietly. "Life testing whether I'd choose myself or someone else." Eleanor's eyes shimmered. "And you passed," she whispered. That night, James walked home with Lily skipping beside him and Eleanor keeping pace on the other side. For the first time in years, he felt complete, not because of a paycheck or a title, but because the pieces of their broken lives had found a way to fit together. The road that began with loss and sacrifice had led them here, to healing, to hope, to a family they never expected. And as the city lights flickered on, James knew that sometimes the opportunities we fear we've lost are only detours, guiding us toward the futures we were meant to claim. Sometimes the roads we think are detours turn out to be the true path all along. James believed missing his interview had ended his chances, but in truth, it opened the door to a greater destiny, one built on trust, compassion, and the quiet courage to do the right thing. His story reminds us that acts of kindness never vanish. They ripple outward, changing lives in ways we cannot imagine. For James, Lily, and Eleanor, what began in grief transformed into healing, family, and hope. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and don't forget to subscribe for more soul-stirring tales, and tell us in the comments, has a single act of kindness ever changed your life forever?